painted my fingernails for this.
Oh, you did, but you didn't do it.
So I don't have the right colors. I don't have a... I was
going to say, did you have green?
I don't have like a convincing yellow that would do this.
You have an unconvincing yellow?
Well, I mean, I have a yellow, but I think I would have had to do like 5 coats. It's kind of sheer, weirdly. Okay. And then I considered actually doing all different pinks because I do have enough pinks. And then I just was like, nah, I just went for it.
What was the nail thing?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it was just part of like the design, but I don't know if it like meant something.
Okay. I kept kind of waiting.
Me too. A little.
So. Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice-weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. As always, this is a spoiler show, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
I think we can probably promise you about 90 seconds worth of spoiler-free. We'll throw down a spoiler. We'll throw down a spoiler warning
for a minute without spoilers.
when we get to it. On today's episode, we are going to have a conversation about the new movie, Promising Young Woman.
You sound mad about it.
No. It's big.
Yes.
I'm not mad.
This is a big conversation. It's going to be a big talk. I have some things to say.
Every week, I go to a club. I act like I'm too drunk to stand. And every week, a nice guy comes over to see if I'm okay.
You okay?
You are so pretty. I am a nice guy.
Are you?
It's every guy's worst nightmare getting accused like that.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is? I wanted to be a doctor my whole life.
So this was one of the only movies advertised this year that I was like, whoa. Yeah. I remember sitting in theaters in January. I was going to say,
this has been one of our most anticipated movies for going on a year.
In January and being floored by the trailer. And I imagine we'll get into this in more in depth. But I think my single favorite thing about the trailer, which goes through the movie, is I couldn't quite place it.
Yeah.
There's a threat level throughout the entire movie that the movie does not let you off the hook until at least well into it. You start to kind of get a sense or feel tonally comfortable with what's happening, at least for me.
Well, it gets to a tonal place.
And it's the kind of thing that we can't clarify here in the spoiler-free section.
Sure. all I'm going to say is it gets to a tonal place in the middle that is more comfortable for a movie viewer because of things that are happening in the plot. And so it's like there's a lot of tension at the beginning and there's a lot of tension at the end, but you get lulled in the middle into just being like, oh, I'm in a bath. And it's like you don't realize that the water's already been turned up to boil.
Sure, but I also mean like you're not entirely sure what she's doing.
Yeah, 100%.
It's living in like 3 different genres simultaneously.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what the rules of the world is. And I wanted to address that because clarifying the tone of this movie is a spoiler.
That's accurate.
But I don't want people to be too afraid of this movie.
No.
They should be in a trigger warning sense, in a content sense. Yeah. But if you're squeamish...
There's not, like, gore.
But, well... True. There's not. I mean, and that's sort of part of, for me, the anxiety of watching the movie is the threat of violence, which...
You're sort of always waiting for the shoe to drop. That's the feeling of almost the entire movie.
Is that what it's like to be a woman in this world?
Just saying.
So
I don't feel great when I'm on an elevator full of men.
Yeah, so the trailer really did a fantastic job of encapsulating that and selling it. And another element that I am so glad I was able to kind of purge from my mind is there's a phenomenal cast that functions more like cameos.
A little bit, yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, all of these people are so fantastic. Like, what is this movie going to be? And like I said, luckily for myself, I forgot most of them.
Oh, okay.
So it was a real treat. To...
All right. Something I wanted to say up front is that a lot of people that we know who are like actual critics that we know through Twitter have seen this movie months ago. And so I have had a steady diet of hyping this movie up for me for like 6 months. And I got to the point where I was starting to get angry because I was like, this was one of my most anticipated movies. I have loved Carey Mulligan since, Pride and Prejudice and then An Education. I love her. And I was getting to the point where I was like, there is no way on God's green earth that this movie is going to live up to the hype that I have for it. So I was like, stop fucking talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I was sure. I found out a couple small things. Like I found out about the Paris Hilton and, I like knew a couple things. And I was starting to be like, I am going to find out something that is like plot specific and like a huge spoiler. And I was getting so irritated. And then they finally announced the streaming date and everything. And I was like, okay, cool. And I can't explain to you how this still somehow exceeded my very high expectations.
At risk of overhyping it, I was in a similar boat, and I was like, "There's no way."
I was like, "This is going to end up
good as the hype."
Yeah, it's going to end up being disappointing. And
it was for me.
It was somehow even better than I hoped it would.
Which I think ties into the thing I was talking about, how the movie really doesn't let you off the hook.
Right. Yeah, and I just like and it's I do think I need to call out specifically Next Best Picture. Matt from Next Best Picture, because he the whole time has been like, this is the best movie. It's such a good movie. You'll never see it coming. Carey Mulligan is outstanding. All of this stuff. It's the best movie ever. So he's really been like hyping it up hard. And I just like, he was totally right. Mm-hmm. And I'm so happy that he was so right.
So I did hear the phrase "stars are blind." So I assumed it was going to play into the movie. I could have never
envisioned how it happened.
Of dreamed of something so perfect.
So we can go into spoilers then, just mild spoilers, and we can throw down a hard spoiler warning for like the actual.
So I will say the exact moment that this movie ended me was 28 seconds into the movie, and I threw my hands up and I went like this. And I was just sort of like,
so that's another.
I surrendered.
The needle drops in this movie. I cannot. The Spice Girls 2 Become One is in this movie. I'm just saying the soundtrack is exceptional. We're gonna get to potentially my favorite one when we get towards the end of it. But
is it not Boys?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do 5 full minutes about Charlie XCX's song Boys?
I do. And if possible, just play the visuals of the video right here, especially Riz Ahmed with the teddy bear on his shoulders. It's my favorite one.
That was one of our favorite songs from 2017.
And the video is exceptional. So I am with you. That was another needle drop that I knew, though, is I was like, it opens with Charlie XCX Boys. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And then it's pan over shots of just the crotches of men wearing Dockers in a club. It's hysterical.
It's like after work, like happy hour type stuff. And
because you're totally right. It is minute one. Like the first second something
thinking about boys. Boys. And it's just
immediate.
It's just so ironic. It's just so and even heavy-handed, but in like a kind of way.
It's so
because I love the song is about the song is so funny. The song is it couldn't be more tongue-in-cheek if she sang the entire thing like this. But because my favorite is the sorry that I missed your party. I wish I had a better excuse. Yeah. Like I was trashing a hotel lobby.
Yeah.
But really I was just thinking about boys.
I read a couple interviews. I read one with Emerald Fennell and Carey Mulligan, and she was so specific about the music and how it needed to be, and it ends up being, you know, on the level of like a Cameron Crowe movie with the music drop, like the needle drops and the music she chose and how perfect it is for every moment of the movie, and it's all just really effervescent pop music. And then I can't even talk about the score because it's also so amazing. Oh man.
But it's all pop music. The entire movie is just seeping with girly stuff.
Oh yes.
It's the kind of pop music that gets so derided and so completely just thrown aside because it's girl shit. And we're all above that. Like,
I will say this right now, and I will say it again. Stars Are Blind.
Don't take this from me. This is mine. Go ahead.
I have always been on your team with Stars Are Blind. That is one of the best pop songs in the world. In the world.
That actual whole album is so good.
It's pretty good.
Because I was like, that could have just been the score of this. Nothing in this world.
Yeah.
Screwed.
Yeah.
Since I'm already screwed, here's a message to you. Like, that album is actually so good. And I have a Paris Hilton tangent, and I don't know when to go on it, but
I'm not sure now's the time.
My feelings are complicated towards Paris.
Yeah, same.
And it's not as simple as like, oh, she's gay and I'm gay, or she's amazing, or it's not as like stupid. Like, I have very in between.
Yeah, it's a lot. We can get into it at some point.
I own an Amber Sweet t-shirt.
We should find that picture of me dressed up like
oh
Amber
God,
Sweet.
I don't know where that one went.
I don't know what else. I don't know how to move forward from the music. Because the music is, I think, it obviously is what happens, what you get first, because you hear it before you start getting any footage, and then it just does set the tone immediately. And I will say I do love that we got a couple trailers. I think we got ended up with 3 trailers, and I do love that basically all of the footage is from early.
It's a Gone Girl type.
It is a Gone
several
Girl
ways
type
over
of thing. Yeah.
Where the and that also goes to show you how strong the movie is that you could sell it with using the first 40% of the movie.
Sure, yeah. And so we basically open on the one where she's on the banquette in the bar and she's flopping over and everything.
The imagery in this movie. Okay, this movie, it hurt my feelings. We watched it separately, and I'm glad, because I figured we'd talk through it if we were, not in a bad way. We'd be analyzing it in real time. And I frequently, when I'm watching things of my own, I pause. I take things in. There were moments where I was like, that was so good, I need to sit for a minute.
Yeah.
Or I need to, distract myself or whatever. And so it hurt my feelings several times. And we'll get to this later because it's spoilers, but there's a moment where I actually was sick to my stomach. And and it's not exactly what you would think would be. My
blood pressure in this movie it's so heightened, but it's also it kind of is like a revenge thriller, but it's not.
So this is obviously still mild spoilers, but moving into spoiler territory. If you're one of these people listening to this podcast, watching the show, trust your instincts and bail.
Yeah, if you want to see this movie, you should really watch it before you watch us talk about it.
But still in mild, but moving into more spoilery stuff. It's a revenge. What are they called?
The revenge thriller.
Yeah, a revenge thriller about a woman who goes out and pretends to be drunk and then, gets revenge on creeps who prey on her.
Yeah.
And that seems so cut and dry. That seems so cool. Got it. I understand. And ultimately, that is what the movie's about.
Yeah.
But there was an element for me going in where I was like, what is the point of this? Is it just catharsis, watching bloody revenge? But it's
not bloody revenge.
And because also another thing that I think is I'm like, is this just preaching don't rape women? Because it's well, okay, fine, duh. Yeah. And yes, unfortunately,
that's not really as much of a duh as we would hope.
well, it's like we're in a place where we need to be saying it,
Yeah.
but there was an element for me where I was like, I mean, are they just going to be preaching the whole time? Like, what precisely are we going to be dealing with? And true to form, it did my favorite thing that I've come to understand, where it's like, the movie doesn't have answers.
Yeah.
It acts like it does, but it ultimately kind of leaves you with more questions than answers in a good way, where
you have to do the work.
you have to do the hard work.
You have to do the work of this movie, for sure.
And it is more layered and nuanced than just don't rape.
Because that's the thing, is there's such a wide swath of men to choose from, and it sort of is tipping you on your head at every moment, because the way it opens,
and we only get a glimpse into her code. There is a code that
she has
we
a code.
do not. It does not get explained to us.
No. But what's interesting to me is the way that it zigs and zags and like zigs back again, because how it opens is Adam Brody and his two buddies see her like sprawled out on the banquette, and the buddies are like being derogatory and gross, and he's like, come on guys. And so he's sort of, you're like, it just lures you in. And he's Adam Brody, he's Seth Cohen, you're like, Seth Cohen's such a nice guy, he's gonna like, it'll be fine, he's gonna be fine. Adam Brody's so appealing.
I was actually very pleased that a huge element of this movie isn't so much men bad rape, like men bad and rape. It was, this is what happens when you live in a society that sort of like, it like predicates this.
Yeah.
It's just sort of expected as some kind of like, what you gonna do?
Like bro moments and stuff too.
That multiple characters are wrapped up into.
Yeah.
They're wrapped up in it to varying degrees.
Yeah. Obviously, knowing what the movie is going in, you're like, well, he's obviously going to take advantage of her. But the way he's framed in those very first moments,
it's a series, but it's also a series of moments. Because he's not, at least the way that I was seeing it, is these men aren't necessarily like,
they're not like, I'm going to definitely assault that woman.
It's just kind of like a series of aha moments.
But it is. Especially because when she ends up with his buddy later in the movie, and she's like, she basically like goes sober, essentially, like because of reasons. And he's like, wait, are you not drunk? And it's just like, it's easier for these gross men. They're just like, well, yeah, I can just get off because she's too drunk to say no to me. And it's like, ugh.
And my thing is, for a long time, society was like feeding to I mean, I am a man, I am sympathetic to the man's plight, and it's like to a point, but I'm saying it's like it's when everyone around you is telling you this is the thing to do, you sort of hand wave things sometimes. When your media, when your friends, when the culture is like, such is the way of things, it's easy to fall into these traps.
Yeah.
And so when we get to the scene with Christopher Mintz-Plasse, where he actually, like, she passes out and she's pretending.
Yeah.
And he wakes her up. And so when she's doing her, like, diatribe later, she's like, well, at least you woke me up. She was like, you get points there. And we see in her notebook that there are 3 colors. There's black, blue, and red. And so I think that has to do with... I think she hurt Adam Brody.
Okay.
Because there was blood on her. That's that I can recall.
Was it just blood, or was it blood, or was it just ketchup from her hot dog? Both. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
We don't know what she's doing to them.
Right.
And of course, as the movie starts, you think
he deserves all of it. He served her kumquat liqueur. Gross. Like a full glass of it.
Mahalo.
And then you're going to put 2 ounces of your bourbon right in there. All right.
But kumquat liqueur? That feels like something you add to a cocktail.
It almost forced her to break. She was like, this guy can't do this anymore.
Well, I was going to say the when she's eating that hot dog and walking down the street, and then the construction workers are like, are you laughing at that?
Girls, if you learn nothing else.
Okay, Will, my husband, he guffawed when that happened. They're like, hey, walk of shame. And she stops dead in her tracks and just stares at them for like a full minute until they start calling her a cunt and being like, you fucking
What's
crazy
your
bitch.
problem?
What are you looking? What are you staring at? Blah, blah, blah. It's incredible.
She like rips the power just right in her.
Incredible. I've like never seen anything.
She doesn't
like
say
it.
anything. She doesn't yell slurs and like,
No.
well, she just stops and stares at them until they get uncomfortable.
It's
And then-
so satisfying.
Because, okay, I'm going to compare this to, obviously, I don't think a person among us didn't make this leap, but I'm going to compare this to the 2009 Halloween movie Trick or Treat.
Oh, God. Great. Can't wait to see where this is going.
We need to change the entire system.
Of
Like
course.
we really, from I was going to say bottom up, from the top down,
Yeah.
we need to completely revamp the patriarchy. But I love sort of in the meantime, it's like, well, while boys are understanding the complex nuances of emotions and consent, in the meantime,
They have to catch up.
while we're working through this, I mean,
Yeah.
true. While we're working through this, let's implement being afraid of women. And
Yeah.
so
100%.
it's a spoiler for Trick or Treat, but there's like basically you think the women are going to be preyed upon, and then the twist is that they're the predators.
Yeah.
It's in a very the movie Teeth thing, where
That's an interesting movie.
I like that this is sort of like, yeah, maybe you should be afraid to approach women in a bar. Like maybe you should, and definitely not fear, but maybe you should be concerned,
You
like, or
should
maybe you
really,
should
though,
be cautious
You
or
should have a
careful
thought
of your
process.
Mhm.
You should like understand what you're doing and how it affects the woman and what she might have been through in her life that would make her skittish of you.
We're in a place right now in the third week of January dealing with men behaving in a manner without a thought process, we're in a very dog chasing car.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when you catch it, bitch? What are you gonna do? This is something where I would like Jennifer Coolidge to do more stuff like this. I was actually like, she's good at just like being a person.
She's good
Yeah.
at her job.
She is good at her job, but she's so frequently so over the top.
Mhm.
And I liked this quite a lot, actually. That house was hideous.
It was so amazing.
Hideous.
It was so amazing. It was some Queen of Versailles
It
shit.
really was.
It was just these like everything was pink.
Yeah.
It was pastel pink.
Pink and, like, gold.
chandeliers. They're framed paintings of dogs.
Mhm.
Like it was so disgusting.
Baroque French sofas. Like,
But it was like a mat. Like if I walked into that house, I would be like,
oh man.
but yeah, her performance, and then who was the father?
Clancy Brown.
But them together,
Mhm.
because the movie also doesn't spoon feed you what's happening.
No.
You're inferring, and because frankly, there was a moment when she like had the picture of Nina and she was like kissed it or whatever, and I was like, I don't really feel like doing this. Like that she's getting revenge for a friend. It just something about it felt like I was like, have we not done this? I thought it cheapened it a little bit. And really, that doesn't, like, I kept waiting for the flashback where we see Nina raped and then we find out, and you don't actually really find out what happened.
No.
She's dead, right?
She committed suicide.
Okay. Well, I assumed.
Yeah, I am actually so grateful that we don't have to see it. And I think the reason that we don't see it is because of Emerald Fennell. I think because a woman wrote and directed this and she had like an iron fist over exactly what she wanted, given like all the things that I've read. She knew 100% from start to finish exactly what this was going to be. And I think she executed it exactly how she wanted to. And I think in a man's hands or a lesser person's hands or in the hands of someone who is like beholden to a studio that is not Focus Features, they would have insisted that we see how horrifying the rape scene was. And I'm just like,
well, it's the whole thing. It's like The Invisible Man from last year, where it's like they think we can't, they think you can't trust your audience.
Right.
And it's like 5 years ago, The Invisible Man, we would have had to watch like a montage of him like beating her in order to understand why she was leaving. And
it's just like, you pick up in the middle.
We're in a post Game of Thrones world. We can fill in the blanks. We've seen it.
For sure. I didn't have the same issue with the Nina thing. I
didn't by the time it was over.
Oh, okay.
I just initially thought it was going to, I thought it was going to cheapen it.
Yeah.
And
I think one of the things that this movie is that I think people are not going to expect is just like a sort of searing look into one woman's grieving process. It is
which brings me back
stunning.
to Jennifer Coolidge and Clancy Brown, where
Yeah.
it was like Jennifer Coolidge is distressed.
Yes.
She is upset
Yeah.
with what has happened to. Do they actually say promising young woman in the movie?
No. It basically
There's places where you fill in the.
You could, but the title is a play on the Brock Turner case. Because they just kept calling him we can't ruin this promising young man's life. And so she was like, fuck you.
Because there's moments where it's like almost like Jennifer Coolidge stops short, where she starts to be like, you were just, and she'll stop. And it's the kind of thing where it kind of feels cruel at points coming from her mother. But then I had to sit there and think for a minute and be like, well, I mean, she's not forthcoming. You know what I mean? Like, we don't quite know what she's dealing with. And her parents don't either. And seeing the balance between the mother and father, between Jennifer and Clancy, because he seems to be a bit more nurturing and a bit more like...
Well, he's willing to let her have the time. And Jennifer Coolidge is like, I don't know why you're still in this.
And Jennifer is like, why you've chosen to do this to yourself.
Yeah. Because it is. It is to a point. A lot of the other characters, all of the other characters have moved on, essentially. Even her mother, played by Molly Shannon, is like, you need to move on for all of us.
This is hurting me.
This is hurting all of us. And you're the only one that keeps dragging this back up.
Well, and Clancy Brown says after the dinner where he was like, losing Nina was horrible.
And we miss her, but we really missed you, like having our daughter. And I get that. It's like she's gotten so
because it's presumably like 5 years, maybe.
It was like, I think the rape had happened 7 years prior. And then I think she like took care, because she mentions that she like also dropped out of med school to take care of Nina. So I think she like took care of her for a while, and then she wasn't there on whatever happened.
So it wasn't like the night after. Okay.
No,
wow.
Yeah. She like was dealing with it for a while.
Which goes back to kind of what I was saying, where I was like, I think that this is about more than just rape. This is about more than just like, don't rape. It's like, because it's like, if Nina's breaking point was months or years later, and because the movie goes there with Connie Britton and all these characters, but I do want to talk about the coffee shop and Laverne Cox and how wonderful it was just seeing her in this role.
Yeah.
Even though it's the sassy friend.
It is.
It's a little cliche, but it's just nice seeing her.
It's sort of a nothing role, and she's dressed a little bit weirdly like a dental hygienist for like part of it. But it was nice to just see her in this movie. I loved it. I was like, oh, Laverne Cox. And it just was nice. I love Laverne Cox.
And she was just good.
So good.
And I'm opening so many doors, but so enter Bo Burnham.
Yeah.
I have so many notes about finally we are treating Bo Burnham as the leading man that he is.
Like the rom-com leading man.
I am so in love with him. And that entire interaction with I forget now what he said about the job, where he was like,
oh, what are you doing working here?
Yeah. And he hears it coming out and he stops himself.
Yeah.
But she still is like, she's not interested. She's not having it. And he the spit in the coffee, and she does. And then he just drinks it.
It's a solid play. It's a solid play to like make up for what you said.
It was also, well, okay.
What?
I was gonna say it was also just weirdly hot.
Well, yeah, he's Bo Burnham. He's 6'5". He's weirdly hot.
Okay, but he's not a sex symbol. That's an us thing.
No, yeah, he's not a sex symbol. I get it. Here's the thing for me about that scene is because it is almost the linchpin of this movie, that scene with him, because she, for apparently 5 to 7 years, has been content to do this thing to men on the nights and weekends. And she runs into this boy that she knew in med school, and he mentions the man's name who raped Nina. And the score turns into a horror movie, and you can hear her heartbeat, and you can hear her mind be like, oh, I might be able to do something else. And there is another switch back later in the movie, and then there is another switch back to this moment later in the movie. It is wild how these like very small, these like 3 small moments that are small to every other character totally flip her world end over end. And it happens so many times because it's in this moment where she's like, I haven't heard that name from anybody in the situation since it happened, because she dropped out of school and never spoke to these people again for the most part. I think that scene it does something to her mind. I feel like I really made you do something.
I got sick again.
Oh yeah, no, it's horrible. It's like, okay.
Like my stomach churned.
This might be the best movie I've ever seen. I am like not really being hyperbolic.
I need to pause the movie. I need a break.
I need to stop. But it really, like we said, it really goes to places because she has that moment. And then the next moment is when she goes out on a couple dates with Ryan. He does a thing where she's like with Bo Burnham, and he does a thing where he's like, oh, coincidentally, this is my apartment. And it's like, by all accounts, he was like, let's have a drink and make out, and it's whatever. She wasn't drunk. He wasn't inviting her up because she was wasted or anything, but it immediately puts her off.
But she was going to. It's like the light goes out and she turned into a vessel. Yeah. And he immediately sees it. Yep. And backtracks.
He does.
Perfectly.
He does. But it is like it's a her thing, and it's internal. And so they sort of make this piece.
Because she's not like, how dare you, and run away crying. No. She literally is just like, oh, okay.
I get it. Yeah.
But like she was going, that's the part that blew my mind. I was like, oh, she's just going to go through the motion.
Yeah. First of all, everything he says in this movie is hilarious because it's just very funny. He calls her a miserable asshole at one point, and it's so endearing. It's just very good. But they end up making this sort of tentative piece, and then he catches her out with Adam Brody's other buddy doing her shtick. And she has to sort of...
Full top knot. Like jangly jewelry. Yeah.
It's very good. So she has to...
Which this is my side note. I have to say I've been obsessed with it ever since the poster, the kissy poster.
The like lipstick poster, yeah.
Get this woman a Britney Spears biopic yesterday. Yeah. She would be so good. Very good. Like that poster could just be a Britney Spears. But yes. So
I sort of forgot.
She caught him with Adam Brody's.
He caught her, with Adam Brody's buddy. And then he obviously is like, no, I get it. It's, whatever. And so she comes again to him to make peace. And it's sort of this really interesting give and take that they have.
It's not like he was waiting. It's not like he was like, she played right into my plan. No, I knew you'd be back. Yeah. Yeah. And so she kind of has to win him back over.
She really does. And she basically is like, what you saw the other night won't ever happen again. And she throws away her notebook and she's like, I'm done. She deletes her Facebook, her Friender account. And she then gets invested in this relationship. And that is the second twist where she's like, you know what? It is time. I do have to move on. And then Alison Brie comes back.
Miserable cunt gets thrown around a lot these days.
Was her name Madison?
No offense, Madison's out there, Madison. But you're bad. Your name is bad. What'd you get naming your daughter Megan? What are you
stocking up for a bitch shortage?
Alison Brie. She does two things and they're polar opposites.
And I don't know how, what deal she made with what devil, but the nuanced characters she gets to play are astounding to me. Because there is a level of sympathy for Madison. If you have to have a little bit of sympathy.
Well, it's not that she's drank the Kool-Aid, but she's capable. She's adapted to her surroundings in a way that Cassandra wasn't able to.
Yeah, she has basically
Madison's made the deal, basically.
She has absorbed into the patriarchy.
It's the ones
it works for her.
It's the people. Yeah. Better to sit at the right hand. Yeah. It's also the ones who walked away from Amelius, that short story that I like so much. Yeah. And the short version is there's a utopia. And when you come of age, you learn the secret to how the utopia works. And it's that somewhere deep in the bowels of the city, there is one child who is kept in squalor. And that child's pain allows the utopia to exist. And most of the people in the city make their peace with it.
Sure.
but like 1% of the population walks away. Cassandra walked away,
Yeah.
and Maddie just sort of.
She stayed because it worked for her. That's the thing.
And
like,
for some of us, that's the only. It's coping. It's a survival mechanism on its own.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that everybody.
I'm sure Maddie has Madison. Yeah, I'm sure she has trauma in her life.
That's
the movie.
A blackout drunk from college. Yeah, I'm sure she's got trauma. That's the thing for me that's so fascinating is you just have to you can walk away, but if you're comfortable there, you might not. And I think
Denial's not just a river in Egypt.
Especially after this year, I think that we all have reached like a a moment where we're like, I just can't, I cannot give everything that's happening my full emotional bandwidth. Like, I can't care this hard about this many things.
I'll die.
I will die.
Mm-hmm.
I will cease existing. It will be bad for me if I have to care about everything that you are trying to make me care about. Something has to give. And so that's the place where I believe Madison ended up, where she was like, I have my own shit and the rest of this system is kosher with my internal logic. I can't.
Oh, well, and she's also sitting on, she's on the top.
Yeah.
I mean, socially, she has the things.
Yeah.
And I think she was horrible.
I think she was horrible too. She was absolutely horrible. That being said, I think, no, her punishment is correct. It's fine. No, yeah, she deserves it. She does. She's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But she also has to go like weeks thinking that this man assaulted her in a hotel room after she got too day drunk with Cassie at lunch. That will teach you a lesson for sure. But like, Cassie goes hardcore.
Which is okay. So now I can finally pick up the thing. Transitioning into spoilers from here on out.
Full spoilers. Yeah.
You're never, or at least for the first half of the movie, you're never quite sure what's happening.
Yeah.
There's a place where you're like, is she killing these men?
Yeah.
Like, is this a like torture? Like what's the one with Elliot Page and
Hard Candy.
Yeah. That's where I'm like, is this what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And the movie doesn't really it doesn't confirm or deny.
Yeah.
But you do reach points in the middle where you start understanding that, yes, she is capable of and inflicting harm.
Mm-hmm.
More so, for the most part, it's psychological. She's just trying to make these people feel.
Yeah, I also think that the punishments correspond to the crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think she makes them fit the crime.
Because we have the scene with Connie Britton.
Mm-hmm.
That girl was awful, too. Her daughter.
Yeah. That was one of my. She was like, actually, you should definitely call her because I don't think she's going to figure it out. She's kind of an idiot.
But it's like I could have believed that she. Well, no, I don't think Cassandra. Well, I don't know. Cassandra's broken. We don't know. That's the whole thing where it's there's a level of anxiety watching the first half of this movie.
Yeah, you do get to a point where you're like, has she been broken enough to inflict the same trauma on other women? And it appears that she won't have the trauma actually inflicted on them, but she will make them believe the trauma is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is wild.
Yeah.
Wild. Because she basically, with Madison, she's like, what are your thoughts on what happened now that you are an adult? How do you feel about that? And Madison's like, I mean, don't get blackout drunk and sleep around if you don't want people to think you're going to sleep around. And she's like, oh, I really hoped for your sake that you had changed your mind. And then she lets her believe she was assaulted in a hotel room by a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
That punishment fits that crime, in my opinion, in the world of this movie.
Vigilante
standards, in the world of this movie, that punishment fits that crime. She goes to the dean, who's Connie Britton, and she's like, I left your daughter in the room that it happened to Nina, who you don't remember, even though she spoke to you about it.
Because I was going to say, so do you think Connie Britton didn't remember or was just pretending?
I think she didn't remember.
Yeah, which is worse.
It's way worse. Okay.
That she genuinely is like.
Literally everything that Connie Britton says is the worst because she's like, we get accusations like this once or twice a week. And I'm like, fucking do something about it. You shouldn't be getting accusations of rape once or twice a week at your university. That's bad news.
And she has that thing that I fall for, the White Witch Jadis thing, where she's so pretty and she's saying it so calmly and but also kind of authoritatively. Yeah. Where I just sort of lie down and
you're like, oh yes, okay. Turkish delight, thank you.
And when Cassie doesn't, it's like, oh, like you kind of see her being like, well, this has always worked before.
Yeah.
Like,
and she's just like, what do you want me to say? And I just, I don't know.
And that's where I was like, this is about so much more than men are bad and rape, because it's like so many women were part of.
Oh yeah, women are complicit in stuff like this for sure.
Which is so. 2 years ago, I guess there was a really lousy movie named Black Christmas that, if you have even just like an iota of creativity, is actually a decent watch.
Yeah.
It's not good by any means, but because it was a rushed production, but it's saying, attempting to say interesting things. And it's what they get to in that is that basically, I mean, well, better to sit at the right hand of the devil. It's that.
Yeah.
And especially we know this, that a percentage of white women are perfectly content sitting at the right hand of the devil. Sorry.
I also, one of the things that made me crazy, because like 4 or 5 people say it at different times in this movie, the way that they were in medical school, which is like 20s. 22, 23, 24, you're in medical school for a long time. And it's after college. It's after undergrad. And many of these characters say the words, I was just a kid. No, you weren't.
I didn't do anything. We were kids.
If I hear that one more time.
Look.
You were not a kid. You were an adult. You were in medical school training to save lives. You're not a kid. You don't get to hand wash this away by saying, oh, I was too young. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's like, no, you definitely did. And you're using that as an excuse to wipe away your bad behavior because I was just an idiot. And it's like, you're all only 30 now. Do you think that like 7 years ago, you were 23 years old? That's old enough to know that you shouldn't be having sex with this girl. You know what I mean? Ryan says it in the confrontation after she gets the video. I think Alison Brie says it. Chris Lowell definitely says it. It's just so every single time I was like, this is disgusting.
Here's why I am going to bring this back up, where we come to the center of the Strawberry Maze. Paris Hilton. So I was just a kid. Look, I know who Paris Hilton is. I liked her when I was younger. I fell for the like. She was like the it girl of the aughts. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I found her fun and funny.
Yeah.
I thought that it was like trolling. I was like, she's just trolling you guys, blah, blah, blah. I know who she is. I know her whole thing. I'm not trying to pretend because even as a fan, at the time there were times where I was like, how are you botching this? Like, blah, blah, blah. But all of that aside, like how we feel about her personally, politically, like what have you, we have to acknowledge the reality of the fact that she was a young woman who was violated on a global scale.
Yes. Yeah.
That talking about I was too young, I was just a kid. She was 19 years old in that video. He was 31, I think. I've seen the video because it was all the rage when we were 18 and we downloaded it off of Kazaa or whatever and blah, blah, blah. And I remember getting like maybe 5 minutes in and I was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
Like the way she's talking to him and the way she's doesn't want to be filmed, you know, all this stuff that's happening. And it's honestly in a very Monica Lewinsky place. And yes, I think Monica Lewinsky has gone on to accomplish greater things with her life. Again, that's not what we're talking about. But I think to give this woman this moment in this movie was really something. It was, I don't want to say special, but it was like, because it's not about what you think of her. They don't talk about the sex tape. No. They don't discuss her reputation.
All that Carey Mulligan says is, "Are you singing along to Paris Hilton?" Which
again was a fun radio bop. Yeah. It was harmless. It was cotton candy. I don't know who. I'm not trying to pass her off as an artist. I'm just saying that at certain points, this is just the reality. And we make of it what we will. And there's this delightful moment. It was just sort of like this retribution for both her and the song. Because the song did kind of come and go, which I think is for the best.
Fine.
To this day, it is the #1 song on our beach playlist.
Yep.
That when we go to the beach, we put on Stars Are Blind.
It's an amazing song.
And it's an amazing scene in an amazing movie because it's borderline fantasy. You're just watching.
It's just this lovely montage of Cassie and Ryan getting to know each other and dancing in a pharmacy and laying in bed and eating and like just hanging out. And it's just fluffy and it's pink and it's so like cute and sort of sexy. And it's so nice.
I haven't done this in a pharmacy in weeks. Literally weeks.
And it endears you to Ryan because he is singing this silly song aloud to her with
he's under
chip props.
He's under his breath at first. It's like I don't think he realizes that he's doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm right there with him. I know every word. But
me too.
So that does bring us to Alison Brie basically gives her a phone that apparently they filmed what happened to Nina and it got spread around.
Yeah.
And she watches it and I had to rewind it because I just my brain didn't accept the information. And when I rewound it again, it was like, well, Ryan was Bo Burnham's name. And I was like, that's weird to have two characters named Ryan in this movie. That's how much I rejected it. And we also don't see the video, so we don't know what is happening.
Well, it's Al is having sex with her and Max Greenfield, Joe, is recording it. And then you can hear Ryan say, why are you filming this? Don't put me on camera.
Don't put my face.
Yeah. But
he's laughing. He's like, this
is
crazy.
Laughing. And it is the type of thing where you don't want to let him be the bad guy. So you're already in your mind being like, well, he didn't participate. You're like trying to make excuses for him because you're like, he's so charming. He's so nice to her. Why? Like, this is like,
it made me sick. I had to pause the movie.
It was, I heard his voice and that's the next moment where Cassie turns it back on and she hears his voice and the score turns into a horror movie and you can hear her heartbeat and she's just like, fuck, I
knew it.
And I think she just, in that moment, I don't think she has like a psychotic break, but in that moment, she's like,
gone.
She's like, oh, okay. No, we're like hard done trying to be normal. There's no going forward from this because the way that this has happened so organically to her, where he just runs into her at the coffee shop and they he's a link back to this world. She could have just kept doing the thing she was doing and like getting by essentially, but he brought her to this other place and she's like, I didn't have to be here. It didn't have to hurt this bad again. And it does because of what you did to me. And it's just like, ugh, you can like see the grief spiral and it's just really intense. And I just like, I'm like my blood pressure again. I'm just like, It was.
Because I like.
You're just like, ugh.
I go depressed, and you
I'm
go
just
like.
I'm amped up.
And I will strike down with righteous anger.
Great vengeance.
And they will know that I am the Lord. Of course, I was imagining Madonna saying it from God as a woman.
I see. Okay.
And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my sisters. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you.
We skipped right over Alfred Molina, who was like the lawyer who helped all these boys get off.
It's a crucial scene.
I was reading some stuff, and one of my favorite things is Emerald Fennell was like, we were filming that scene, and it's like, it's very impressive the way that they play off one another, because Alfred Molina, he's like a big man, and she's a tiny lady, and she is there in essentially, she thinks she's walking into something different than she does.
She's not prepared for that at all. It throws her off her game.
Because he has had what he calls himself an epiphany, and he is like, he got put on sabbatical essentially because he was like, oh, I this was a bad thing that I did for a really long time.
Like he had a come to Jesus moment.
For sure, yeah. And so he like, she's like, I'm here for your reckoning. And he's like, oh, I've been waiting for you, essentially. And
I think he might literally believe she's an angel. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was going to say is when I was reading those interviews with Emerald Fennell, she was like, I had this picture of the Pietà on my computer. And I was like, if you could just naturally get into this position somehow while you're doing this scene, that'd be great. And so they kind of do. He's like, he's on his knees, basically asking her for absolution by the end of the scene. And she's just like,
and she's somehow in over her head.
She's like, I need to leave.
Which was more upsetting to me. And this is where the moviness of it shows. One of the few places where the fact that it's a movie shows. It implies this is the first time she's ever encountered that. And I have a hard time believing
somebody being
remorseful and throwing themselves upon the mercy of the court.
Well, I think it is in this scenario. I think she's familiar with the idea of people throwing themselves.
No, I know, but we don't know how many men she's done this to. And this is the first time that a man actually was like, you're right. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
I believe it.
Is that me having too much faith in humanity? I mean, at a certain point, the jig is up.
She has dozens of check marks. No, men get angry. Every man she encounters gets angry instead of remorseful. Even Ryan gets angry at her. He doesn't feel bad. He gets angry at her instead. Sorry. Are you sick again?
No, because I globbed onto that. She really corners him.
Yeah.
I think that there's maybe a scenario. I want to understand what the movie is saying about Ryan. Because by all accounts, he's done everything right up until we find out that information that he participated in this thing in college. So is the moral that, yep, you guessed it, all men are trash, there's no point? Or no, because I didn't think so. I was like, is he a bad guy? Or
I don't necessarily think he's a bad person. I think another woman who is not as damaged by the whole thing as Cassie is could forgive his involvement in that.
Which is where it brings back up where, for me, it's not so much that the moral is men are bad because they rape women. It's that we have this huge gaping problem in our culture that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed on all levels.
It is a systemic problem because the main issue is that there is no universe where no matter, Ryan's a pretty good guy. He's a pediatric surgeon. You know, he's like a nice.
Well, like I said, he listens to every signal she gives him.
100%. But the problem is that there was no way socially for him to have turned his friends in for doing something like that. Like, it wasn't in the culture of the time when we're assuming this happened, that was just a night. That was just a night that happened.
The system is broken far beyond what we will acknowledge.
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, the only people who are really paying are the victims.
100%.
And I think it was that sort of, I think that's sort of what made me sick, because you learn about these, at least, I mean, the way that my brain works, we learn about these things when we're younger. And so sometimes I tend to have a stunted understanding of it. I tend to think of it in very black and white terms and very like, well, I mean, this is a weird place for me to throw down Jesus on the cross. But, you know, when you're a Christian and you're taught the crucifixion, you have sort of a stunted idea of what that means.
Yeah.
And then you see Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. They killed that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's veiled in all this mysticism, all this religious mysticism, until you actually are like, oh no, that was just like.
But no, you learn that you learn that part first.
Yeah.
You learn that he was killed and died on a cross and came back before you can even comprehend what it means to be a human, let alone, you know what I mean? So it's like it's just sort of taken at face value. And so to watch a piece of art like this, where I'm like, I mean, this is beyond the calls coming from inside the house. It's just sort of.
Here's the thing is like, given the information we have about the character of Ryan, I would believe that standing there and doing nothing while Nina was raped is the worst thing he will ever do in his life. That is on accounts.
Although he does go to the wedding.
Yeah, I think he's trying not to be suspicious by that point. But I think that's what I'm saying is like, I don't think that's the worst thing that Al or Joe will ever do in their lives. You know what I mean?
I feel like Joe is even somehow, well, no.
He's probably worse. He's the one who
Al felt like he really had gone through the ringer.
Joe is the one who thought to videotape an assault. So it's like, I believe that Joe and Al will do worse things. So on balance, Ryan is the best guy in this movie, if that's what we're trying to talk about.
No, I just was trying to understand, because it's like, the movie is so thoughtful and well crafted that I wanted to fight the urge to just chalk that up as gotcha, as like, whoop. They tricked me. He's been bad the whole time.
No, that's the thing is like, for us, it is more nuanced because we don't have Cassie's grief and we don't have.
And I think that was the
level of betrayal that she feels. So astute for you to be like, another woman probably could. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were with a man and he was like, yeah, oh my God, this one time is like, you know, and especially if he acknowledges that it's gross because he's watching the video and he's like, I don't want to see this. Why would I want to look at this? And she's like, well, you didn't have a problem when you were there. And it's almost like he's convinced himself he wasn't there because he literally is saying, what are you talking about? I wasn't there, as his voice comes on the camera. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, you know, it's the type of thing that I believe I can see from his mind where he's like, well, I didn't do it to her. So it's not something.
Because everybody has different priorities. Yeah. In the moment for him, his priority could be impressing his friends. Yeah. Could be his masculinity.
Of course. Yeah. And that's what I was saying, where I just was like, there was no path forward for him to be like sticking up for Nina or like go on Cassie's side or something. He was, again, enveloped in the status quo, just like Madison.
I was so wrapped up in their
little romance. Me too.
Yeah. So then do you want to talk about the thing?
The end? Yeah.
It's a two-part. We're going a little long, but
that's fine. This was an intense movie. It was a good movie. It's like, it's in the zeitgeist right now. You deserve this talk about it, I think. So a two-part?
Well, yeah, there's two things that happen. The first is she goes to okay. So I love Chris Lowell.
We all do.
I love him so much. I am so sad
Bash
that we're not going to get to see the conclusion of Bash's storyline. Yeah. It just, because for me, I know him from Britannic.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just I am a Libra.
This is definitely spooning. I'm going to get something. I'm going to put it between us.
It's a great idea.
I'm a Libra.
This isn't what I thought you meant.
Yeah, this doesn't feel right.
I want to tell you that Emerald Fennell hurt your feelings on purpose. she very specifically cast people that people like.
Oh.
she got Bo Burnham. She got Max Greenfield from New Girl.
I did want to say
Chris Lowell.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse. That was
Adam Brody.
So funny.
So funny.
Him talking about his fucking book.
Yeah.
And that's one of the places I laughed out loud was when he tried to give her the cocaine and she exhaled.
Yeah.
That's a thing that, that happens sometimes. And I just was kind of like, I laughed out loud. There were several points in this deeply traumatic movie that I, like you said earlier, guffawed. I was like, that was so funny.
It's funny. Okay, that before we get back to
the moment,
your thing, one of the parts where I laughed the loudest is when Cassie and Ryan are in bed together and he's trying to tell her that he's falling in love with her. And she's like, oh God. And he's like, shut up, you stupid bitch.
that's a Bo Burnham like staple.
Because again, it's such when he calls her the miserable asshole, it's like such a mean thing to say, but he's saying it so charmingly that it works. It definitely works.
So, yeah, I reached a point where I was like, Chris Lowell is in this movie, and I have yet to see him. And I was like, so help me God.
If he's Al.
If he's Al. And he was, and, oh, God. It's just the scene. Yeah.
So,
because also, Al Monroe doesn't appear to be like, sweet, here's a stripper I can rape.
No,
like,
definitely not. And I think that
makes it harder.
It does.
Like,
it definitely does. After she finds out Ryan was involved back in med school, she like extorts the location of Al's bachelor party from him.
That's where we get a sense as to what she's actually doing, because she went to medical school. She does have a understanding, and it appears she was carving the name into them.
Really?
Yeah, she said that she was going to carve Nina's name into Al.
Yeah, I thought that was just for him. Why would she carve Nina's name into
It could be just for him, but my point is, I think she is drawing blood. I think the red check marks draw blood.
When she draws blood. Okay.
And the fact that she is actually drawing blood, which is so
beyond the pale, kind of.
But then I thought, but she's not Saul fiving them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's very Inglourious Bastards. Like,
it's also very Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because she ends up doing that.
Or Snakebite Andy
to someone. Yeah. So it is sort of like
it just was such. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Because again, a lesser artist would have gone more or less, and it was just such the right middle ground.
That I 100% agree. So she basically dresses up like a nurse stripper with like the best wig I've ever seen, and she throws her license plate in the woods, and she turns off her phone, and she puts her keys on top of her tire. She walks from relatively far away to go up to this bachelor party
barefoot,
and then she puts her heels on once she gets there. And she just plays the part for a while. She, basically pours liquor in all their mouths. And then she takes Chris Lowell upstairs, handcuffs him to the bed, all still pretty kosher, because she's just like, oh, it's for my safety. And she's like putting on this character. It's amazing.
She even pulled the I don't get paid until.
I don't get paid unless I take you upstairs. Who's going to tell, So she gets him handcuffed to the bed, and then she doesn't totally turn then, but she says that her name is Nina Fisher, and Al is immediately on the offensive, but he is already handcuffed to the bed. And it just goes from there. She tries to do the same thing that she did with the rest of them and just be like, just admit what you did. Tell me what you did. And he won't do it. And he says the thing again where he says, I was just a kid. And to my ears, no, you weren't. And that's when she fully sort of snaps. And she's like, I'm just gonna, now her name will be all over you, because that's what happened to her, is she wasn't Nina anymore. All she could see was you. And for a minute, you think it's going to happen. You think she's going to get her revenge and it's going to be great. And she has already implied that she drugged the men downstairs and they are passed out, which hilarious that she roofied all of these men. because they're too dumb.
Because they don't see her as a threat.
They don't see her as a threat, and they're too dumb to not take alcohol from whatever. And he is weeping and being such a whiny bitch. And you just think she's gonna get away with it. And then one of the handcuffs comes loose. And I didn't cry while we were watching it, and I might cry now. Because you just keep thinking the whole time that it's gonna be okay. And he is smothering her, and she's trying to fight back. And you just sort of think she's gonna get a shot in there. And she doesn't. And he's crying and saying, just stop moving, just stop moving. And it's just horrible. It is so visceral and so gross. And it happens for like what feels like 15 minutes, but has to be only like 3. It's such a gut punch. And then I don't know how to explain what happens next, but Schmidt from New Girl comes in the morning. And
so Al was just there all night.
Yeah, Al is just there because his other arm is still handcuffed. And I don't know.
He's just there crying all night.
All night crying next to Cassie's dead body. And Max Greenfield, Joe, comes in the morning and is like, oh man, with the stripper, oh my God. And he's just like, she's dead, man. And he doesn't clock for like a minute that he's being serious. And he's very good. I think Max Greenfield is very good, but he has a couple of real Schmidt moments in this scene where he like lifts up the blanket and it's horrifying, or the pillow, and it's horrifying because you can see all of her makeup smudged off on the back of the pillow. And that's when he does the most Schmidt thing. He's like, whoa, killed the fucking stripper. Oh my, why is the stripper dead?
Honey, what are we doing? Jesus fucking fuck. Is she dead? Now, why is the fucking stripper dead?
I told you.
Well, how did this happen?
And this might be even worse than her smothering the grossest scene in the movie, because all that Joe does is just say, hey man, it's not your fault. It was an accident, right? And he's like, I mean, it feels like it was my fault. And Joe lets him off the hook. He's like, you didn't know it was just an accident. We're going to get rid of it. It's fine. And they burn her body. And it just is like, I like almost don't have words. And you sort of were like, is this how the movie is going to end, with these men standing over this bonfire? Unbelievable.
It was sort of like, if you are surprised by this, you haven't been paying attention.
Of course. Absolutely, of course. But then
this is not going to go the way you think.
Yeah. It goes to Al's wedding, which looks just awful.
Someone had Pinterest in 2011. That's all I'm going to say.
Such a hipster, weird ass wedding. Also, they're all wearing like purple, but then there's like red ribbon around the like arch or whatever. So by all accounts, it was a nice wedding. They had a good time. And then it's like the reception, and Joe's being disgusting, and Al is like, thinks he's, away scot-free. And you just start to hear police sirens in the background at the same time that Ryan starts getting scheduled texts from Cassie.
That's what really, so I have like 3 opinions here.
Okay.
It shocked me. I didn't realize that it's not so much that I think she was like, I'm gonna die.
But it was just in case.
She was
like, but
she
there's
was
a real
prepared for that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was.
I don't think she willingly
She
went
didn't commit
to
suicide.
her death.
Yeah.
But I think she was like, there's a good chance he'll kill me if something goes wrong. I want my insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is interspersed with footage of Alfred Molina getting a package from her that says, in the event of my disappearance. And then she gives him the phone with the video from Madison. And it just is actually pretty fucking satisfying. And
I was unsure.
Really?
Yeah, which goes back to I had to sit there and think, so what was this movie about? And I'm still on the fence, unsure as to whether or not I think I would have liked it better or if it would have been more powerful if they did just get away with it.
Ooh, no. I like the way it did. When I was talking about it with Will and he was like, I really wish she got to have it. Like he wished that she lived and that she got to have this revenge.
It was very Cruel Intentions.
It was
she did and she didn't.
Yeah, for sure. And I do agree with that to a point. But again, having read those couple of interviews, Emerald Fennell was very specific about it. And Margot Robbie's production company produced this movie. And so it was very female from top to bottom. And they never got fought on the ending. There just was apparently one conversation where she was like, are you sure this is what you want? You're 100% sure. And Emerald Fennell was like, yes. And I think it would have been nice if Cassie had been able to live. But what she said that was very specific is, in that scenario, Carey Mulligan would not win that fight. You know, like that wouldn't. Christopher Lowell would absolutely overpower her. That is what would happen.
But also, furthermore, what is her life then? I mean, is she back to being fixed?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the thing is like I think
you reach a point where when you reach vigilante justice in the real world, which as I mentioned at the top of this episode, there's a question going into this movie, how real this world is. And by the time we reach that point, it's the real world. Yeah. Does she get to just go back?
No, and that's the thing. Like, so what's she gonna do? She carves Nina's name into Al, and then she leaves, and it never comes up. It never comes up again. And then you're right. It's like, no, there's really no coming back from the place that she's in. And while that revenge and that justice would have felt really good, it is less realistic than what happens. What happens is what would have happened. And I did read, I didn't clock the woman's name, but it was a Roger Ebert website. It was like one of the only negative things I've read about the movie. It's got a 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. And it has sort of stuck with me since I read it, where she basically was like, it sort of makes you feel like there's no hope in the world because it takes the deaths of 2 women for these men to go to even be arrested. You know, that sucks. That's horrible. But at the same time, it is unfortunately the way things work a lot of the time. And so I am mostly...
People don't care until there's blood in the streets.
100%. So. And so it just, to me,
adult white men's blood, not children's.
Yeah, of course not. I was just sort of astounded by the ending. It just, I can't imagine it I mean, I could imagine her living, but it's just like, you're right. What would the end of that movie look like? What's going to actually happen? I just think it was exactly how it needed to be.
Yeah, because like I said, I was unconvinced that was the best way. Yeah. But
I think it. I really truly think it is, because I think that's
because also the nature of this. Well, because the nature of this movie, it every story is a story.
Yeah,
and so given what the creators had given us to that point, I don't think total bleakness is this ending to that story. That sure. If they just got away with it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
I think
that's too much.
It's not the end of the story we've been seeing.
Yeah. Where it's
and that's an issue that I have a lot of times when I'll be watching a movie or whatever, and I'll be like, this hasn't earned this. Yeah. Or this, like the tightrope that this movie walks between being, a work of art, a story, and an indictment of a culture. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? At what point, where is its priority? And I do like that it starts and ends with its priority being firmly rooted in movie and entertainment. Yeah. And yes, it manages to say many things in between there, but it starts and ends a movie. And I think that's an accomplishment for a first time.
Yeah, first-time director. She is an actress. She also, in the movie, she is the girl doing the blowjob lips video. Yeah. She's had a run on Call the Midwife. She had a run on The Queen. She plays Camilla Parker Bowles.
Oh.
Yeah.
I need to fucking watch that show.
Okay. I just I am in the place now where
Speaking of justice for women.
Yeah. I'm in the place now where I was this time last year with Greta Gerwig and Little Women, and the same place that I was, you know, a year and a half or 2 years before that, where I was with Greta Gerwig and Lady Bird. I want more movies from Emerald Fennell yesterday. I want to watch her direct a million things that are exactly what she wants to do. This is one of the most self-assured directorial debuts I have ever seen. It is. You
can't be afraid of this.
You cannot be afraid of it. She apparently too was like, the idea just sort of came to her wholesale in her mind, and until she reached what she believed was going to be the ending, she didn't even write it down, anything about it, and then she just wrote it all down at once. Unbelievable, totally wild. I think actors and actresses who decide to direct are sometimes the most impressive ones because they know what it is to direct another human to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell we're winding down, so I just think everything about every part of this movie was exactly what it needs to be. Carey Mulligan, holy shit. If she does not win an Oscar for this movie, it's astounding. She's so good in this movie because you see her sadness and you see her grief and you see her sort of stasis where she is. But she's also has moments of levity, and you watch her be happy and you watch her fall in love a little. And it just is such an all-encompassing performance that's so interesting. It's such an interesting performance. And then to have this cast just totally littered with people that you recognize fondly from other things, and then they all just sort of turn out to be trash bags. It's a real move. I was very impressed across the board. Oh, and we didn't talk about my favorite needle drop, which was Angel of the Morning by Juice Newton.
What part was it?
At the very end when he starts getting the text messages.
Okay.
And it just call me Angel of the Morning. And it just, I was like, ha! It was so good. Such a good end song for this movie. Perfect. I loved it. 5 stars. I loved everything about it.
You're gonna just start weeping.
I am. I almost did. And again, like we said at the beginning, I didn't think this was going to live up to the unbelievable hype that I had gotten for it already, and it somehow still exceeded my expectations. And I think this is going to be one of those movies where like I don't not think about it like on the daily. It's so good. Recommended all around.
You're like 3.5 stars.
No. 5 stars for sure. Yeah. So Promising Young Woman is available for VOD right now on like most platforms. I rented it on Amazon. Yeah, I think definitely watch it. Keep in mind, yes, you said it is in a very like trigger warning type of place. So if you've gotten this far and you haven't watched it yet and you think you might be triggered, maybe don't watch it. But I think it's.
I was triggered. So
I was triggered. I was absolutely triggered. But
this is one of those where sometimes I'm like, you don't need a trigger warning before a picture of a spider on a tweet. Yeah. But no, this was a trigger warning
for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it is important and necessary movie viewing. So yeah, rent it for sure right now, always, every day.
You're the one that takes us out.
No, I know. I can't stop talking about it. Okay. All right. Other than that, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's @SoI'mWatching, or Instagram @SoI'mWatching this show. We also have a website, soI'mWatching.com, which links out to everything, including the YouTube, where you can like and subscribe right over here. And then other than that, if you're just listening, then rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And I think that's it for us.
Just call me Angel of the Morning, Angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, babe.